All right. So this is the September Tempo community call. We have a pretty good crowd here. Appreciate everybody showing up. We have a lot of smaller stuff to talk about today. Just kind of progression on Parquet, progression on TraceQL, got some news there. I'm going to farm a fair amount of this out. Because like I said, I've been in meetings all morning. I haven't had a chance to review any of this. I guess I can talk a bit about Parquet because that's kind of been my main push. And I will ask others to talk about some of these other things. So just be like super ready if you're on the Tempo team. Even if you're not, maybe I'll call on you anyway. Let's start with the Parquet and Grafana Cloud and other internal clusters. So we are currently running Parquet in all of our production clusters. It's mostly stable. It's less stable in our ops cluster where we have a lot more traffic, but we're kind of struggling a bit with different components. But for the most part, things are going well. And we think maybe in 2 weeks, we can really kind of ratchet down a few settings that are going to make major changes to cloud. So right now we are creating Parquet blocks, but our settings are still kind of tuned to V2 in cloud. And the result of that is that querying is not going to be that much quicker than V2 for the moment. As soon as we get kind of this like critical mass of blocks in our production clusters, we can change a lot of our settings over to a kind of more Parquet friendly settings. In fact, the Tempo, what is it? Tempo 1.5 blog post had those settings. I'll go ahead and put a link to that in the docs. I'm sorry, in this agenda doc here. So there's just a handful of settings that make querying way better on Parquet. And we have some recommendations in that on that blog post there. Likely we will change the defaults for 2.0 to be more Parquet friendly, and we'll move everything over kind of with 2.0. At the least, we'll of course have release notes and blog posts and everything that again kind of advise people on how to tune their clusters for different backends. So Parquet is moving forward. It's kind of a 2-step forward, 1-step back thing, if I'm being totally honest. We make some progress, we add some stability, we get some speed, then there's, a little problem comes up and we have to kind of like reset a bit and get it fixed up. But things continue to move forward, and we are looking to cut 2.0, hopefully by the end of the year, hopefully November or so, with the Parquet as a production-ready backend. That is kind of ambitious. We'll just see how things go, and we'll of course always keep you all up to date on this call about how that's looking. Right now things are going slower than we'd like, and we'll just keep talking about it over the next few months as we go forward. But we are running it in production, so that is something, I suppose. TraceQL.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Marty, jump in here,
jump
buddy.
in here for Parquet.
Yeah.
We're making a lot of learnings as we go along. Like there's so many tunables and different things you can do with Parquet, like the group size, max block size, different encodings, compression algorithms. So we're trying a lot of different things. Like we're still finding like what is working best. I would say that the defaults in Tempo probably right now are not the best, like for sure. No. So we'll definitely be coming back and improving some of those. Yeah, but I was wondering, is anyone using Parquet? Has anyone like had a chance to turn that on and have anything to share, good or bad? Sure, cool.
I know that Alton has, because he's filed like 3 bugs because the single binary is panicking for him. But we'll figure that out. The distributed mode doesn't panic, and then we have this. So one thing the Parquet library does is use a lot of unsafe pointers for speed. And so we have some garbage collection issues, and we keep going back and forth on the stability of the single binary. I would say right now the distributed mode is more stable than single binary, and we don't even run single binary, so we're gonna have to go back and spend some time with that and root out that particular issue and fix it. Yeah. On that note, here, we should share this. This is, we're currently seeing 1+ terabytes per second. I'm gonna say effective terabytes, effective EB per second scanned with Parquet. And what I mean by effective is basically, the V2 blocks would have to pull all data all the time, right? And it would just unmarshal proto and then assert your search conditions and keep a trace or drop a trace. So if we continue to use those metrics, like just the total size of the block, we're scanning over a terabyte a second right now in our ops cluster. So queries are in a way better spot. They go much faster. We're pulling far less data, and we're just continuing to tune and improve this over and over again. Then one time I did get around 4 terabytes a second. I don't know, it was some kind of fluke, but don't tell anyone that because it's I can't reproduce it. But one time I got around 4 terabytes a second. And I think it would be awesome to see that more consistently, like 4+ terabytes a second on queries. So while we are struggling a bit with this, and we're continuing to move forward, just the promise of the backend is, continues to be there. And we have a lot of hopes moving forward for both TraceQL and just performance in general. On that note, I'll pass it over to Marty, because I believe he's probably got some info on TraceQL.
Hey, yeah. So we started implementing TraceQL. I think maybe we talked about this last time, or maybe we said we were going to start. Well, we have started. I don't know, maybe it's halfway, it's going well, I think. Actually, what we were thinking here is, I think we invited Andre. Hey, and you have maybe some really cool UI work that's in progress too. So we're kind of working in parallel between the front end and the back end. And I thought there was some really cool stuff going on there, like with the TraceQL editor and things like that.
Yeah, I can show it off.
Yeah, that would be great.
Cool. So yeah, so all of this is still pretty much experimental. It's really not stable. Bugs may appear, but yeah, there's been some progress on actually building the editor, autocomplete, syntax highlighting, which I think is pretty cool and should help everyone understand TraceQL and write some really cool queries. So the main thing is that as soon as we start to build a span set selector, we have all of the completion options available, scopes, resource span, the intrinsic values are possible, like duration, name, status, and then all of the tags that we retrieve from the Tempo API. And I think this works pretty well. It auto-completes operators, the possible values, again, retrieved from the Tempo API, and this should make writing queries a lot easier. Again, I'll just go through a few examples here. But yeah, I think this is working pretty well for just an experimental status. But yeah, for the editor, this is our progress. It's again getting stuff from the Tempo API, but also for the response, what we're trying to do is build something that shows us the traces, and then which spans we matched using the query. So we want to show a quick look at a few spans, like 2, 3, 4 maximum, inside that trace, where we can see which attributes matched, so that the user can have a quick look at how the query performed and what the results are. This will all be linkable, of course. This is just using some mock data, some random data that we generate, but it will be some real data very soon. I think there's a question. I don't think that's available yet. So that the question is if we can search tags instead of specific span.
Hey, yeah. So I think this is part of the TraceQL language design. So I was bringing up a link here for kind of like a intro to the language, and all of those, the dots that precede the attribute name in the query are mean to actually search both places. So it's searching the span level and the resources, and that the span, if they're specified in both, the span level takes precedence. So it's searching everywhere, but you can actually, with those parts of the language, do resource dot, and then it's scoped only to look at the resource or the span. So like by default, it should be easy to use as like kind of like the tag search that we have, but you can also be more precise for that kind of stuff. And then I was going to post a link here for kind of like this doc here. So this is an intro to the language. It doesn't have like the full capabilities and everything that we have, but like I think it's a good intro to read and kind of catch up on these concepts. Yeah, another thing here. Can you pop up the operator? We also have like a lot more expression there. So currently for tags, sorry for the equal sign. Yeah. We'll be able to do integer math, string regex, so you can handle case sensitive or insensitivity, things like that. It's going to be a lot more powerful too.
I think you're talking about like you have this dot, which does both span and resource attributes, or you can say specifically resource or span. I think one of the neat things about the Parquet backend that is going to be kind of enabled here is that the amount of work you ask of your backend is going to be kind of transparent to you. Like it makes sense to the user, and you can train your users and yourself to write efficient queries. If you write a query that says .name or say .tag, then it's going to look in both resource and span. It's going to pull a lot more data. If you know for sure it's a resource level attribute like resource.cluster, then suddenly you can more effectively search your data by more correctly scoping your queries, and you really kind of have a more powerful user interface, a way to write queries that will be more effective than before.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Part of the attributes, I guess maybe to touch on that, was our idea there was to actually bring back the parts of the span that are relevant to the query. So there's still some things to figure out there, but basically if you're filtering on an attribute while we've scanned through and have found that attribute, we'll go ahead and return it to the UI so you can see it. I think that doesn't make sense for things like equals, method equals get, right? There's only one value, but if you have something like a regex or a greater than, then you have a range of values and we're bringing that back. So it's useful to see what was the actual value that it matched. Yeah, there's definitely a ton of stuff here, and it's pretty exciting. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Andre.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on to additional work. We've recently moved forward to Go 119. I think we're mostly on top of that. It's been out for how long? A month or two? Not too long. Or am I way behind? A couple months. I want to introduce one of our newer team members, Jenny. She's going to tell us about this. She super doesn't want to because, she's kind of new. She's welcome to make me talk about Go 119. Why don't you give us something, Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny. So 119, the code was not that particularly different, but Golang CI gave us a lot of linting problem. So they also needed to upgrade their thing to 1.19, and I don't think they predicted that there were going to be a lot of issues with that. So their first release of 1.19 support was kind of terrible. And then we're using their latest version is like 1.49, which now they got rid of a few of those checks because they were deprecated, and the original contributors were just not responding anymore. So I guess they're just getting rid of those checks because there's bugs now. But I think it's fine now. Everything passed on the CI job, so I think we're good to push it out.
Cool. Appreciate that work. I asked Jenny to upgrade us to Go 119, expecting it to be like a find replace 118 to 119. And it turned into like a week of work of like tracking down a million weird Golang CI linter issues and ones that weren't even really issues. So thanks to her for getting us moved forward to 119.
And then, Go format is very sensitive about spaces now and comments. So if there's an extra space, it'll make a new line and then indent it. So that was it's a fun more things to figure out.
Yeah, it mangled some of our comments. I was not happy about that.
Yeah.
Oh well. Cool. Thanks, Jenny. Welcome to the team. Appreciate the work. That was a bigger task than I thought when you started on that one. Let's move on to, so we have Helm chart changes coming up. We're trying to do some standardization there, and then also some interesting information about a potential operator. And I think Zach hopefully has a chance to talk to us about this.
Yeah, so for the last few months, the other database teams have been sort of working on Helm, and it's been more important to the community. Seems like a lot of people deploy with Helm, even though we internally have been JSON users for a long time. And so the Tempo team is a little slow to join the bandwagon, but we're getting there. So for the last few weeks, I was taking a look at a little bit of a refactor to try to align with some of the approaches in the Helm chart. This is mostly, around code reusability and a little bit of patterns that have been developed by the other teams. So seeing that, I raised an issue with the community. So if you have comments, feel free to look at the issues. And then I've got a big gnarly PR that does the refactor. And so that's currently working locally. All testing is going very well. There's a couple changes I need to go back to and address some feedback in the PR. So that'll probably be coming in the next couple weeks. And also we included Jet install. So this will be a way that enterprise customers can take advantage of the installation and all of the foundation of the Helm chart that already exists today. So that's pretty cool. If you have feedback, like I say, feel free to use it. Drop it on the either the issue that I filed or on the PR itself. It's a big change, and I understand if nobody wants to review it, but we'll get some of the other teams to take a look at it. Yeah,
Zach, so something I think has always been important about the Helm chart is like how community driven it is. Are we maintaining that? Are we keeping that feel? I want to make sure we balance that with some of these changes.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should balance that, and I'm kind of relying on feedback from the community about that approach. I'm definitely building on the work of the community. This is not a rewrite in any way. Obviously, like during a refactor, certain portions of the code are going to get smushed, but yeah, this is definitely built on the work that the community has done over the years. So, like full props to the community for this. And we definitely want to, encourage contributions in the future and that kind of thing as well. But as the company, as Grafana gets more involved with the Helm charts, it's going to make sense for us to align in some ways. And so, individual changes between the charts, might be looked at a little bit differently in the future, but cool. Yeah, definitely a concern. And we do have some breaking changes in this change coming. So those are documented. Be on the lookout if you're just bump the version and run it kind of person. You might want to review the change log for this next upgrade. And then, if there's no questions about that, I'll just give a brief mention about the operator. So speaking of community, this is a community-driven project. I think it's building on the work that the Loki team has already accepted into the project. And so this is sort of modeled after that. But we've got an operator. There's a Tempo operator channel in the community Slack. I would encourage you to join and give feedback if you have it. There's a design doc and a review and all of that. So all that's starting to take shape. And like I say, it's kind of modeled after what happened in the Loki project. So we're probably going to take a lot of nuggets from that adventure.
So like Zach said, we don't use Helm and we don't use operators either at Grafana. And we really rely on the community a lot to make these things a good tool, like a worthwhile tool to use. So appreciate all of the input on the Helm chart. Please jump in that PR that Zach has and give some feedback. And then if an operator is something that interests you, we can all make this better. The best way to make this better is by chatting in that channel, giving us some feedback, making use of it, these kind of things. We do really deeply rely on feedback from the community to make these particular components work, again, because we are not consumers of them ourselves. But yeah, we are very happy to see some interest here. Operators are a cool feature of Kubernetes. And hopefully that project will move forward and we'll see something cool in the next few months. All right. On that note, I want to introduce Siraj, who showed up on our team and solved a problem we'd had and ignored for about a year in Azure and had only 2 or 3 issues in the repo on. So he's going to give us some tech details on DNS lookup and how he fixed an Azure error, like literally we've been ignoring for 6 months and occasionally going back and trying to fix and band-aiding, and he got into the nitty-gritty details and fixed it.
Hello, hey, I'm Suraj. So if you are running Tempo on Kubernetes with Azure backend, you probably would have seen these errors. We saw these errors in our Azure clusters. We ended up going deeper, and then we found out that this happens when we try to do DNS lookup. And in Kubernetes, DNS lookups are amplified. I attached a GitHub issue in the agenda doc that shares details, but mostly what happens was there is something called ndots, and Kubernetes has ndots configured to 5 by default. So if you don't have fully qualified domain names, Kubernetes will try to do local DNS lookup, and that results in, I think, around 11 local lookup, and then it finally resolved. And that used to take a fair bit of time. And we used to see the timeouts in like when trying to call Azure blob storage from competitors. We did 2 fixes in this. One was we increased like max connections so that we don't, create new connections every time. That made the problem better, but it didn't solve it completely. So another fix we did was we wanted to make the Azure backend storage URL fully qualified by adding a dot at the end of TLD, but turns out that needs a bit more work. I have an issue attached, so you can look at that issue and see why that's the case. Mostly Azure is not happy when you pass like post name header with the trailing dot. So as a workaround, we lowered our ndots to 3 in Azure clusters, and the max connection and ndot change solved that issue for us. But yeah, another PR that came out of this was all the Tempo services. Like if you're running Tempo in distributed mode, you have like bunch of Tempo related services, right? And those services also do the DNS lookup stuff. So we made them fully qualified by default. So if you're using Tempo on Kubernetes, you probably want to do that. That will improve latencies, because you get to skip all the local DNS stuff. I have a follow-up issue on this one. We do want to support, like doing the fully qualified domain name lookups in Azure and other backends also, because from what we know, this should save us, like DNS lookup time when we are doing reads and writes. And theoretically, we do a lot of reads and writes, right? Practically also, but depends on the cluster load. So this should help us on that front. So yeah, I mean. Cool. This is something we learned, and if you're running Kubernetes.
Right. The trick here is like it's amplifying the number of DNS requests because it's like asking for every spot all the way down, or every like a namespace, right? And so this fix, this ndots fix, is useful for anyone on Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, anyone who's running Kubernetes. And this is not just Tempo. If you're running any other applications that make API calls to outside services, you may want to use fully qualified domain names for them as well.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that work. We did. It was just, I don't know why I guess we don't know why it happens on Azure and nowhere else, because something about the Azure DNS really didn't like it. It just would fail some percentage of the time. And this fix, I guess, just massively reduced the amount of requests we were making to DNS. So always a win, I suppose. Cool. Thanks to Siraj for fixing that. It's been something that's been bugging us for a long time, but it was difficult to prioritize, and we appreciate him jumping in and helping us. On that note, I'll open up the floor a bit. We have quite a few people here from the community. If you have any questions about upcoming work, or even just how to operate what you're working with now, if you're having issues running Tempo, or just want to talk about anything that's going on in your tracing world, please feel free to unmute and ask, or you can just chuck it in the old chat, or you can even type it in the agenda. I guess maybe people have permission to use the type in the agenda doc. I'm not even sure. It's possible. I have permission to type in the agenda doc. Cool. All right. Maybe I'll ask Marty a question. Marty, what are you going to do this fall?
We have observability-con this fall.
Yeah, I'm going to be at
So that's cool.
KubeCon. Is anybody else going to KubeCon in NA, in North America? No. Am I going by myself? All right. I'm actually going to be representing on Jaeger. So anybody goes to KubeCon NA, I'll see you there. And I'll be talking about Jaeger. Sadly, I'm not talking about Tempo. We submitted a paper for Tempo and it got, what was it, Marty? What was it was waitlisted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we submitted one about the new columnar backend storage and some of the other storage types we'd attempted, flat buffers and proto and all this. And it was waitlisted and we haven't heard anything back. So it's the way it goes, I guess. Oh, Heads will be there. Cool. I'll see you, Heads. All right. Well, if there are no questions or thoughts from anyone else, we can go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank everyone for showing up. This is a pretty big call. Just keep coming to these calls. We'll keep keeping you updated with Parquet and TraceQL and keep you in line with what we're working on and how far along we are. And I expect every month there to be new news, and we'll hopefully deliver this soon, question mark, soon TM, soon in the next few months. We'll see. We're working hard over here. I appreciate the support from the community and everything you all are doing. Keep filing issues, keep filing PRs, keep doing what you're doing. I think we're building something awesome here. Everyone take care, and I'll see you next month.
Okay, see ya. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.